In today's instalment of Aren't Metros Fun, I want to continue with the strip down. Now, we're not going to do anything seriously mechanical, but instead I want to make my own life easier by taking the doors off, and then we're going to take the dashboard out. Now, there is still some interior trim in there, but that's not important for now because I want to do some more checks, as last time, as you may have seen from the introduction, we uncovered some of the rust on this car. Now, there was nothing more than I already knew about, or expected, should I say. And so today I want to do more of that by taking the dashboard out and seeing what the wiring loom is like. Now, it sounds like a weird place to look, after all it is a Metro, but I have seen from my 6 years of ownership that this car at some point in its life has had a dodgy 1990s alarm system, and I want to see whether we're going to need a whole new wiring loom or not. I expect that we will, and I don't think that would be such a bad thing anyway, because it opens us up to fuel injection and electric windows and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, let's take the dashboard out and see whether we're going to need to spend some money on tracking down a really nice 30-year-old wiring loom. But first, the doors must come off, and I'm not just going to take the door off in its whole as it is right now, and I'm not going to strip it down all the way. I'm going to take off the door card and all the furnishings, take off the mirror, stuff like that, and then I will pull the door off the car. And then once I've got them both off, we'll take them out over there somewhere if I can find the space, and we will take the glass out, we will take all the trim off, we'll probably take this rubbing strip off maybe, and just generally inspect them to see what I think they're like. But yeah, I'm not going to take the glass out while it's on the car because that could end in calamity. It'll be easier to do it on the floor, I think. So yeah, we'll get to the main attraction later, but first of all, the doors. I need to grab you. Hello. Metro doors are phenomenally easy to disassemble, so this should not take us too long at all. What should we do first? Let's get this and take off the door pull. That seems sensible. I've not broken that, have I? No, good. It's a really positive start not to break things. And we need a big old screwdriver. Where on earth is my big old screwdriver? I think I might have lost it. I'll go and find it. So, Austin Rover plastics do not have a great reputation, and fair enough. However, on K-Series Metros, they're not too bad at all. Certainly, when they were new, all the press reports said the quality is high, and I frankly have to agree when compared to contemporaries. It's not perfect, of course, but it's not bad, certainly. The door cards are a bit grim, just in the grey vinyl that they are, and really boring. There's no kind of nice fabric on it or anything. Oh, by the way, I've got a nice little bag to put all the fixings in, so don't worry about me losing them or not knowing where they go, because I've done this a million times. So I know where they all go, and I've got a bag marked door fixings, so that's all well and good. So that's off. Let's take the door bin off. So yeah, the door cards themselves are not very nice, and also the door bins are really poor quality. But apart from that, all the stuff that you actually touch, like the door handle, the window winder, the door pull, they're all really nice. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. But you might remember, actually, this is quite a while ago now, we changed the door cards and the door bins on this car because Melvin's originals had been messed about with. Someone had put the door bins back on, and because they're metal screws holding on very, very thin plastic, the door bin cracked in multiple places, and they tried to fix that by super gluing it onto the door card, which therefore wrecked the door card as well. So fortunately I found nice door cards and door bins, so I fitted them, I don't know, a couple of years ago now, maybe. I think it was just before I went to the NEC one year. But yeah, they're not the finest quality, but these certainly will be used again. The door cards, I'm not sure. You see, I've got this mad idea in my head of doing a custom interior on this car. Now that is going to cost me a fortune, fair enough, but so's the resto. So, you know, if the entire thing's going to cost me a fortune, I might as well do it the way I like. I don't know whether my idea would work, and I'm not going to tell you all because I'd like for it to be a surprise if I do end up doing it. But yeah, the door cards might not be being used again. But that's all many, many thousands of years in the future because I need to save some money. I don't have the money to have this car restored at the moment. I mean, I'm doing most of the work myself as much as I possibly can, but the actual bodywork and the paint job will be done by a professional because they are very highly skilled things to do. I mean, you know, I could give welding a go, and I'd love to someday try welding, but at the moment, beyond my pay grade. Especially when it's on a car like this, which is something that I hold massively dear, is really rotten. It needs a lot of welding around that rear arch, so it's not like I just need to plate it over. It needs some fabrication. Yeah, for a car that means so much to me and a car that I really want to last, I would rather let it go to a professional. But who knows, in the future. So, some previous owner, again, probably the same one who cracked the door bins, put new speakers in this car, and the speakers are quite good. They're Sony speakers that have been installed upside down, I've just noticed. But they are placed within the original Metro speaker mounts, which is good because it keeps it kind of OEM, but they have hacked them up a little bit. They're cracked, and again, someone's over tightened the screws, I think. There we go. So there you go. Here are the speakers if you're interested. They're tiny, you know, they're Metro speakers. They're Metro-sized speakers, should I say, but they are actually quite good. That's the ratings plate on the back of them. I don't know why you'd be that interested in these because they're probably not the best speakers you can get, but they sound all right. They do sound all right. I'll put that over there. And now what I'm noticing is that this is two different stretches of wire and there is electrical tape in the middle of them. So, what are the chances we have a twist and tape special on our hands? I think the chances are really high, judging by the quality of the install, both in the speaker pods and with the old door bins that cracked. And yes, we do. Look at that. It's just hilarious, isn't it? Couldn't afford a crimping tool, couldn't afford a soldering iron even, or actually just couldn't afford some speaker cables long enough. Oh dear. Twist and tape. I knew it was coming. As soon as I saw the electrical tape, which has earth markings on it, hilariously, as soon as I saw that, I knew that was going to be twist and tape special. So that's wonderful. Let's untangle that while we're here. So, I am going to wind the window. Oh, what should we do? Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the window all the way because I'm not taking the window out of the car here, and I'm not undoing any of the lock mechanism and door latch because you need to remove one of the window channels in order to get to it because, of course, the channel goes down there and the latch is there. So it gets in the way of you pulling it out. So I will lower the window because we won't need to put it back up, and then I can put it on my shoulder when we actually get the door off the car. So, next thing, the door handle. Now this is a part, funnily enough, that while it feels to be kind of decent quality, the quality of the moulding is not very good, and the plastic is so thin around the screw that really no matter how, you know, softly you screw in that screw, these door handles, they crack. Now this one, yeah, it's cracked. I don't know whether you can just see. You probably won't be able to. The camera's not going to focus, but it's cracked around there. Fortunately, that's really clumsy of me. I'm saying this about broken parts and then breaking them myself. But there is a company actually that 3D prints these, because that's the genius of the modern world, is that tiny parts like that would previously be totally unobtainable can now be found very easily. These trim removal tools are useless. I mean, I get the point that they're going to try and get the plastic bits off a car without breaking them, but they're so weak that the ends just bend. There you go. Fortunately, Metros do not have a silly clip style fastener for the window winders. It's just an 8mm nut. Now, if you're wondering how I know what I'm doing, I don't. I mean, I've done door cards a million times, but in terms of actually taking the doors off, I've looked in the manual, but I only looked in the manual after I started doing the door behind you, and I took all the latch out and stuff and then realised, the window channel's in the way, and I don't want to remove the window channel yet. I want to do it when the door is on the floor, and then there's less chance of the glass smashing into the window. Smashing into the door, sorry. So that is everything. Twist and tape wiring special. And this is the brilliant part of having an old car. The door cards are just ugly, but so easily come off. There you go. That is one door card removed. So now that that's all gone, all the kind of soft furnishings, all the stuff that could easily be scratched is gone. I will take the door off the car, put it on the floor, and then we'll do all the latch, the glass, all that kind of stuff. Don't know why I'm telling you. You're going to see it in a minute. Oh, actually, before we do, we'll do the door mirror. Look at that. You can see yourself in the mirror. I'm going to get right in the way of all this, but hey ho. That just pulls off. There you go. Now, Metro door mirrors changed when they brought out the K-Series Metro in 1990, which is not surprising, they changed most of the car, but these mirrors were shared with a number of cars. They were shared with the MGF, which makes sense because the MGF was a Metro. They were shared with the Lotus Elise and the original Tesla Roadster. Now, I don't like Elon Musk, but there are a couple of things that join together his cars and Austin Rover. First of all, are the fact that these mirrors, because the Tesla Roadster was an electrified Lotus Elise, these mirrors ended up on the first ever Tesla, and he sent one up into space, which means that there are a pair of Metro door mirrors in space. I don't know whether it's still in space, that thing, but it did send a Tesla Roadster to space, and that's that. There you go, you can see yourself again. The other thing as well is that because these were fitted to MGFs, MGFs had heated door mirrors, which means it's very easy to install heated door mirrors to a K-Series Metro. You can also fit internally adjustable and also electrically adjustable, because these mirrors also ended up on the bubble-shaped Rover 200. I don't know whether it was the 200 or the MGF that had electric mirrors, but one of them did, and that means you can have heated and electric mirrors on a K-Series Metro, if you like. Right, I've never done this before, so I'm fully prepared for it to end in calamity, but I have a jack ready to support it, but I've got to keep the door slightly closed so I can get to the bolts on that side. I actually have two options of doing this. I can either remove the door from the hinge or the hinge from the car, and I've decided I'm going to take the hinge from the car, which means there are two bolts down here on the inside of the pillar, and then there are three bolts behind where the wing sits. So usually you might not be able to get to these, but as I've got the wings off, that's one, and that's two. So now that I've got those two undone, I want to just, I need to put that jack under it to support it a bit, but first what I'm going to do is pull through the speaker wire from inside the pillar, because remember our twist and tape special? So now that is out in the wheel arch. There's no other wiring, that's the only wire into the door, so we should be free to go now. There should be nothing stopping us from getting the door off the car. Right, that's now supported. It's not totally resting on the jack, because of course I don't want to kind of tilt the door within the arch. So let's now get my 13mm spanner, see if this will come off. Right, that's the bottom bolt out. What is the best way to do this? I'm not sure. I might have not opened the door enough. I want to be able to still get round, but I don't want to pull the door open so much that there's not the room here. Okay, that's 2 bolts. Well, there you go, the door's falling off. Right, okay, I've got the weight of it now, so it is sitting on the jack. I know there are going to be hundreds of you sat screaming at me saying what an idiot right now, but I could have done with getting a small socket on this rather than the spanner, but hey ho, here we are. Oh, behold the doorless car! Behold the doorless car. There you go. So now I need to move the car across and do exactly the same thing with the other door. Metros are easy to push around anyway. Never mind when they've got no interior and one door. It was a shocker when I bought the BMW. I mean, who would have thought that a car 600 kilograms heavier would feel 600 kilograms heavier? Seriously though, it is just another reason why small cars are the best. That BMW is brilliant and all, and I love it, but it wouldn't half use less fuel, and be more fun to drive, and be easier to move about if it weighs less than 1,000 kilos. Oh, I've not done the grommet on the thing. Place that on there. There you go. Behold the now truly doorless car. What a silly thing. That is quite ridiculous. But hey, there we go. Doorless car. So now this will be a lot lighter, a lot easier to push about the place, and access is so much better. So I will bag up all the fasteners, and then we'll move on to doing the dashboard. That should have been the big job, but this is day 2 now because it's the middle of winter and the sun goes down at 3:30. Now, although we're taking the dashboard out, we do actually have to start under the bonnet, which sounds a little bit convoluted, but beneath this air cleaner is a carburettor, and on the side of the carburettor is a choke cable, and we need to take the choke cable off because the choke cable runs through to the dash. That isn't actually dreadful, considering, but I shall not ever need an air filter like that again if what I'm planning actually comes true. Now, I will assume that that one is the choke cable, so well, that was easy. Where's a screwdriver when you need it? So with the cable itself loose, there is this little clip. Metal clip that holds it down, that secures it. And there you go, there is the choke cable free. Final thing is to pull this grommet out the dash, or out of the bulkhead should I say. And there you go, that is now free to be pushed through when we need it. Hello again. You might have noticed when we were in the engine bay that there was no battery tray. That's because I took it out because I wanted to explore the possibility of moving the battery, but I thought it wasn't worth it, packaging reasons, all that kind of stuff. Just leave it OEM, keep it where it is. But that's taken out and I'm not putting it back in because why would I? It's just a tray. Also down there, which you probably won't be able to see, the clutch cable isn't connected, so the clutch is just resting on the bulkhead of the car. And that's because a friend needed a clutch cable, so I took Melvin's clutch cable off, took it down, then he didn't need it in the end, so Melvin now has his original, but again, what's the point in actually hooking it back on? Because it's a bit of a faff. So here we are. So first thing we need to do on the dash is the steering wheel. Well, that was the most ridiculously tight that's ever been on it. But there you go, there's my lovely, previously new old stock mini steering wheel, which is, I think, a serious upgrade over the original Metro one. But now, we need to remove all the steering column based stuff. In fact, actually, I had the steering lock on, so there you go, steering lock off. Actually, no, don't be silly. There you go. Steering lock off, so that I can still move things around. I don't know whether that's going to be necessary, but it's better to have it. Now, I wanted to change the camera angle because now we come to the column stalks. Actually, you might notice, slightly different point, but everything is crooked in this car. I think someone, if the driver's door lock's been changed, and this is all crooked, I think someone might have tried to steal Melvin at some point in the very, very distant past. But either way, that'll be fixed. The point is the column stalks. So these just, there are two clips at the top and bottom. And they just slide out. And the left-hand one also has the hazard button on the top of it. But the point, if I remove it from the car totally, like that, is that I'd like to do a little bit of a history lesson and also make a request. Now, I'm going to start disassembling this column stalk because these were first fitted to a car, this style of stalk, in 1984 with the Austin Montego. I've lost that screw. But they were first fitted to the Montego in 84 and ended up in loads of cars. They were installed in the Metro in December 84, when the Metro was facelifted and got this new dashboard. And they were also in the Maestro, and they're in the very early Discoveries, they're in Range Rovers, and they're in Sherpas and LDV vans later on. And so genuinely versatile, used absolutely everywhere. I think there must have been another car as well that had these, but I can't remember now. But when they were first fitted to the Metro, you see the symbols at the end there. I mean, this is a basic spec wiper stalk, so there's no intermittent switch in the middle. But on the other stalk, there is a rocker switch that controls the lights. And those little symbols at the end, which has now gone out of focus, there you go, on early cars, they light up. And they're lit up by fibre optics that run down the stalk and then come out the end. In the centre of the steering column, there is an empty bulb holder, and there'll be a picture on the screen to show you what I mean. And on earlier Metros, like Melody for example, there is a bulb holder in there with a bulb in it, the wiring going to it, and then the fibre optic ribbons take the light down to the end of the stalk. Melvin, of course, doesn't have this because they removed it for cost-cutting reasons in 1988 or something. But what it means is that, of course, I want to install fibre optics to the stalks. The problem is the colour of the illumination. So you're not going to be able to see it there, but on the back, you'll see that the tint is green. And that's because A-Series Metros, well, up until 1989, Metros had green illumination. In 1989 they switched to orange illumination, which is what Melvin has. So if I just ran fibre optic ribbons and ran all the electronics to light it up, they would light up green. So what I'm asking is, I would like a set of orange tinted stalks. Now these may have been fitted to some late high-spec Montegos, maybe some Maestros as well, but what I do know they were fitted to was LDV vans from the 1990s. So if you come across, or have, or whatever, or know where I can find some column stalks that look like this, that have the orange illumination in the end, then I would like them. And I would also like the fibre optic ribbons as well, because then I can build the illumination and the ribbon into this original stalk, which is the correct colour of plastic from Melvin. So that's an upgrade that I would like to make. So if you do have a set, I'll probably be able to find a set at some point on eBay. They do crop up, but if not, then let me know if you've got a set of stalks. I would like an intermittent wipe one rather than the base model wipe, and the light switch is a light switch. So if you do have one of those, then let me know. So that's all the wiring disconnected. There is the light switch, and you can see it has that switch on the end for the lights, and the push for the horn. So yeah, a set of these with orange tint at the end and the ribbons running down. They still fitted the illumination to LDVs in the 90s, so that's kind of what I want. So with everything disconnected, I'm going to make marks on the wiring to tell me what's what. I know that is for the wiper one, and these two are for the lights. And you might not be able to see that properly. But I want to see if I can remove this cowling here, just this little plate of plastic. And I would assume that this big screw will take that out. Screwdriver too big. Now what I might be doing here, inadvertently, is unnecessarily removing the clock spring, which is what cancels the indicators when you turn left and right. So I might be making a mistake here, but let's give it a go. Yes, that was everything coming out. But that's okay, because I want everything to be stripped down as much as possible for when everything gets reconditioned. But the point now is that I can remove the fuse box cover. And now I'm going to drop the steering column down so that I can undo all the electronics and all these horrendously repaired wires. And then we'll do the fascia. I'll say fascia. The binnacle and the surround. And then we'll start disassembling things, but dropping the steering column should help get the dash out eventually. So in order to drop the column down, there is a shroud that goes over the around the pedal, so you can't see the bare column. So there's a screw holding that I've already removed, and one bolt, which is not very tight at all. There you go. There is your shroud thing. I thought it was actually conjoined, but it's not. There is a gap for it to fit through. And now there is another bolt next to that first one, which again is not all that tight really. And now, again, not all that tight. I imagine actually they can't be clamped too tight. I imagine the torque figure is quite low for these. And then finally there is one more bolt. Well, there's one more nut actually, and it seems to have a wire earthed to it. I don't know whether that's factory. It is poking out of a loom that has been totally mashed up here, so see that there? So yeah, I really don't know what that's for, but again I will mark it. And that is the steering column out of the way. So this is all going to be quite dark, but I don't know where you can see with my torch on my phone there, the fuse box, and you can see there are wires like there, for example, that brown wire that is soldered and not heat shrinked. There is a connection block there, which is clearly not factory, and that's connected down a little loom to this that was on the steering column. So yeah, it's all been messed with and not very well. That's why I think it had a 90s alarm in it. I don't know where this little loom runs off to, but we'll figure it out when we take the dash out. So for now, I'm going to just remove all the plugs from the fuse box and get everything loose, so that then hopefully nothing will be stopping us from taking the dash out of the car. So there you go, that's the column out. This is the one for the fascia. It's all marked on the fuse box, so that is everything. Hey, actually that is curled up and cable tied off speaker wire. So why they extended it with twist and tape, I don't know, because that just pulls straight in from the door. Not a clue. So I've unplugged everything I possibly can. I have labelled everything up, if you can just about see that. Everything that needs labelling anyway. And now we are going to do the dash binnacle. Now, technically to remove the dash, you don't need to do this, but it's easier to remove it now rather than do it while the dash is on the floor. So there are a couple of screws under here, and then these three. And now, there you go. So there you go, so there's that off. The buttons are still in there, but they just pop out of the front, and the fan switch, that just pops off, and then there's a nut underneath it that I need to undo. But I'll do all that later, because that's beyond what we need to do right now. So again, I'm going to label all these up to make sure I know what they are, although none of them actually fit elsewhere, but it's better to label these things up rather than just leave them undone. This mess here, they are for my auxiliary radiator fan switch. So I have a switch which is an air conditioning switch for a Metro. They didn't fit into UK market cars, but aircon was available elsewhere. So I've used one of them as a cooling fan switch. And over here, I'm afraid that is a connector block that was piggybacking onto the illumination circuit for when the radio was installed, because this car didn't come with a radio. The radio install wasn't perfect, and so when I didn't know better, me and a friend used a few connector blocks, so that's not great. However, it is only a radio, it's not ignition componentry like what was happening down there. I've taken Metro clusters out a few times before, and they are always a faff. I was going to take the end off the trip reset stalk, but it doesn't want to go. There you go, it has come, because that could fall off. In fact, what I do need to do is undo the speedo cable. This is supposed to either just be able to be pulled out, or there are tabs if it doesn't just pull off of its own accord, but it doesn't appear to be coming. I'd make a useless mechanic. Oh my god, I've had this out about 5 times before. Why won't it come off now? Well, I've gone inside for a big cup of tea and a sit down and a think, and I come back and the speedo cable still won't budge. I do not know why. As I said, I've had it out many times before, but it won't budge. Also, I don't have 2 adjustable spanners, so I can't take the upper speedo cable off the lower speedo cable and just pull the entire thing out with the cable. So we're going to crack on with trying to remove the dash. We'll run into that issue when we get there. Hopefully I can just manoeuvre it out the back of the dash, but anyway, I've gone and found my radio removal keys, and also knackered these little covers that cover the holes on the side. There's one falling out. And there is the radio with the rat's nest of wiring behind it. The aerial. Yes, I have just pulled the wires out of the connector block rather than pulling the connector blocks out the back of the radio. But they were in too tight, and frankly, I'm beyond trying to save things that look like that. That's exactly the kind of thing I want to avoid when this car is rebuilt. I want a proper factory-looking professional wiring loom, which is not this. So there you go, that's one more thing undone. This radio cage actually looks a little bit bent in there. Regardless, I can shove all this wiring inside and pretend it doesn't exist for now. What else do we need to do? I'm going to leave stuff like the cigarette lighter in. I'll remove the ashtray. And of course, the dash mat. Now technically, there's nothing else I actually need to do here. I could pull the dashboard out absolutely fine right now, but for the sake of having less stuff on it and more space to grab and a little bit less weight as well, though it won't weigh anything, I'm going to remove the glove box. And as with everything on this car, it's just a million very small screws. Those centre two hold the little striker on, and then that just pulls out. Now, this is not, we'll talk about this probably in the next video now because this one's getting far too long, but on the back of the glove box is where the build sticker is for a Metro. This isn't Melvin's original, this is from a car from 1993 because Melvin, from factory, didn't have the glove box lid. His was just an open hole. Glove hole. Also, I'm not going to be reusing this because I don't know where you can see there. There's a big old scratch on it. But now, I think that's everything. So, as per usual, it's just going to be a load more screws. Now, more useless Metro trivia. But Mark II Metros, i.e. A-series engine Metros, Austin and MG Metros, may have had a dashboard that looked very similar, and though yes it was a different shade of plastic, it is actually a different moulding. And the reason it's a different moulding is that on Mark II Metros, the dash top warped, which obviously didn't look very nice. And so they fixed that with the Mark III Metro like this, and it's all to do with the way that return on the top is formed. Because on the Mark IIs, the screws are recessed and have little covers over them, so it all looks nice. On the Mark IIIs, they look worse because there are no covers. The screws are flush, and you can see them. However, because of the change of design, they don't warp anymore, so there you go. It's the little things that maybe look rubbish on paper, but in real life. Right, that is 7. This one is 8. And now number 9. Oh my God, there it is. Oh, let me go around the other side. I can't, I'm gonna have to move over. Oh my God. It's kind of out, but it's also kind of not. Right, you're not going to be able to see this bit, but behind here are a couple of screws that need undoing in order to release the heater controls. There's one. But hey, heater controls. So that's them. There are electrical connections to the bottom because just there, which I have changed actually on this car because it went, there's a bulb. And there's actually a hole on the dashboard where the screw is on the bottom of the binnacle surround. So let you change that. Ah! Ugh. With them comes the illumination and wiring for the cigarette lighter. Again, part of this rat's nest that was my fault. but I'm happy to admit was my fault. There is a connector for the choke warning light. The choke cable itself doesn't want to come through, but I'll go and get that in a minute. There's a clip there that goes over the dash. More wires to pull through. Choke cable and speedo cable, they're the only two things left. Choke cable. Oh, I've just noticed a nice big chunk of bubbling rust on the sill that I hadn't seen before. Oh, hey! Oh my good God, that is ridiculous. But it's out, and that wasn't quite as difficult as I thought it was going to be honest. I thought it was going to be worse than that. I can imagine it's going to be an absolute pain to get it lined up again once we are finished. But I can't believe that. That's ridiculous. It still won't come off the back of it. I don't know why, but I managed to wiggle it through the dash backwards. There you go. Fantastic. So there are a few things that I need to label up. These are all my labels from before. So I'll label up stuff like this. Those two are for the back of the binnacle. I know what all this stuff does at the moment, so I will do all this as soon as possible. I will cool down, have a drink, and then we will have a sit rep. You join us again after a little bit more work, and everything is now clear. The dash is essentially ready for us to move on to the next bit. So I've bolted the steering column back up just with one nut, just so that it isn't lying on the floor. Of course, the speedometer is finally gone. It did come undone after the millionth try. I don't know why it was so tight on there, but hey ho. I've also tidied up all the wiring, so that rat's nest is gone. I've pulled it out of the loom, I've pulled it out of all the connector blocks, all the Scotch locks, and it's gone. It's gone in the bin, and it's not to come back. However, I've encountered a bit of good news. So another thing that I've removed is the dash harness generally, and that just comes off from this plug that goes down into the engine bay. I'd already unplugged it from the fuse box, so that's gone, so it's all been cleaned up, and that piece of loom, which isn't that big, is perfect. It's absolutely fine, it can go again. What isn't fine is the ignition wiring, because for the 6.5 years or so that I've had this car, I've been under the impression that, as I mentioned to you, that it had previously had some kind of horrendous alarm and or immobilizer system, probably from the 1990s. Now the reason I thought that is partly because there were things going on with the ignition wiring, but the reason that got into my head was because on the door, in fact over there on the window, it says warning, protected by Delta alarm systems. So at some point it must have had an alarm or whatever. And as well, the fact that the driver's door lock had been changed and the steering column is slightly crooked, I thought that it had been installed after someone had tried and somehow failed to steal the car. But as it turns out, that was for the original radio install. So as I mentioned, when we took the radio out of the dash, me and a friend last year rewired the radio because it was so horrendously done the first time, and it didn't have any illumination circuit to it. So we tapped into the illumination and took it off down to the radio, so it all works properly. Because Melvin didn't have a radio from factory. 1.1Cs didn't come with it unless you optioned it, and Melvin did not have that option ticked. So the loom has no provision for a radio or any speakers from factory. And when that was installed, clearly it was poorly done by an owner. I imagine the alarm was just poorly installed as a rubbish 90s off-the-shelf alarm. But I should have known actually from the Scotch locks on here that it was not for something quite as critical as an alarm. It was actually just for the radio, which is why most people tap into the ignition barrel wiring. Ignition barrel wiring. But there we go. So that's all gone. Yes, there's still that to deal with, but I can cut up the ignition wire and then I can repair that better than it was. However, this is, straight into the barrel, and I'm not going to reuse this barrel because I've got a different lock set for it. So that can just go. That doesn't matter. All the wiring issues I thought I had, I don't have, because no other parts of the loom that I've found have been butchered. It's just the radio wiring. There is no record of an alarm or an immobiliser ever having been fitted. So I imagine the sticker was just a deterrent. Although actually, come to think of it, when I got the car, there was a red LED on the dashboard with wiring that came down here and just ended. It didn't go anywhere. It was wired and the wire had bare ends, but it didn't go anywhere. So yeah, you can see why I thought that it did have an alarm or an immobiliser, but as it turns out, that's just for the radio, so I'm happy. All we've got left now is that from the barrel. We've got the wiring for the stalks. We have the auxiliary radiator fan switch that was wired in. That's the aerial, and then down there, you probably might just be able to see it hanging down. There's a single wire for a rev counter that was put in, but the actual gauges were never installed, so that's all we got now. Everything is clean, no damage whatsoever. Bit filthy, but that's fine. And eventually at some point we'll remove all the heater system, all this ducting, and obviously the heater controls themselves. But yeah, for now, that will do. Well, I appear to be drowning in Metro parts, but I think that will have to do for today's episode. I've been editing this while I've been doing it, and it's already over 3/4 of an hour long, as you lot will know. So any of you who are still watching, thank you. And I'm sorry for being so boring. But I was going to strip down the rest of the dashboard to just a bare plastic shell, and also strip the doors down, take the glass out, take off the lock mechanism, all that kind of stuff. But frankly, it's going to have to wait. In the next episode, we shall do that. We'll also take a little bit of an overview of the parts and see what we need to get new of, what we can reuse, what can be cleaned up, etc. Also, any modifications that are going to be made to these kind of things. I have something in mind for the dashboard, not in terms of madness, just in terms of features, with an OEM look, of course. And we will do some more kind of interior things. I don't want to get onto the mechanical side yet, because that's all the big stuff, really. So that can wait until I have the time. And also space. That's the other big thing. When you start disassembling a car, you start to realise how much space all this stuff takes up, and frankly I don't have any. And as I don't have the money just to cart this car off to a body shop yet, I need to just be careful with what I take out of it and what I don't, and what I kind of wait to do until I really have the money. So that will be all. Thank you very, very much for watching this one. I'm sorry for the light buzzing at the top, and I'm sorry for probably the echo of my voice from the top of the dash, but here we are. If you enjoyed the video, then please do click like and subscribe to TwinCam as well. My Patreon supporters, I am forever indebted to them. They are all wonderful. They all get early access to my videos, and they all get updates nearly every day of what I'm up to, what I'm doing, what kind of stupid things I'm up to. A few little behind-the-scenes bits go on there as well. Nothing stupidly substantial, because I want to keep it all, open to everyone, but just a few little things are available on there. Brochure PDFs as well, because we're all massive nerds here, so if you'd like to have a look at some PDFs of car brochures, then there are some of them available as well. So yeah, follow the link down in the description for that, and as ever, I will have more videos coming along very soon. Maybe not on this car though, that'll be quite a while off. Maybe videos on Melody, and also videos on the BMW. I've got stuff down there for them. See ya!